how over the last, let's say maybe the last decade, to take a arbitrary timestamp, how has your approach to coaching evolved? What are the main things that have maybe changed in that time?
Gosh, because it's such a long decade, a lot has happened since 2010, but um, not a lot, really. I would say the only thing has changed actually is the market's perception of fitness. So I would think that the only thing that has changed in regards to my coaching has been the ability to adapt and to kind of get at the base level in the consultation as to what really matters to people faster.
Mm.
So I don't think the coaching has changed much over a decade.
So maybe talk about the market in and of itself. How has that changed over the last decade?
Oh man, I don't know where to begin. Gosh, how do I make this short? We've moved, further and further towards this fantasy of physical expression. That's the short and dirty of it. We have now had 10 more years on top of a previous generation, and now reproduced humans that have this now embedded in them, of higher percentages of people that use fitness as a fix for a poor lifestyle. And from 2010 to 2020, there's been an exponential increase in information that is being shared on what people can do in regards to fitness. But I would say at not as a just as fast of a rate down, but I think we're moving further and further away from objective truths in practice of fitness, which is kind of funny, right? You would think that we have this massive amount of information now that's available to anyone at any age. It has accessibility to YouTube or the internet, but it's not making any impact whatsoever on what physical expression is and what we have available to us as a human right, I believe, to physically express ourselves and to create increased resilience. So that's a shorter piece of what's happened in 10 years.
In your mind, what's missing to make that link between those underlying truths that we now know about and then what is actually going on in the fitness sphere?
Yeah. Just simple terms, I guess, would be awareness. Awareness. And I hesitate to say education because then it's very easy to blame education and the accessibility to it. And then when you say education, people just think one thing. It's like, public schools and access to it. It's like, no, it's just people becoming competent in awareness around fitness as a practice, right? We're so deep into the commercialized aspect of it that, I use the example. We've made it, we're so entrenched and so deeply embedded to that belief, like way so far over there. I'm even having a hard time creating words as to what's the link to create change, because it's honestly, in my view anyways, it's not fixable, which is a whole other topic on if it's worthwhile as a form of something to wake up and try to rewrite and change. But I think that we're so far over to the concept of it, it being complex that we we don't see that, walking every day and lifting the odd heavy rock and carrying it is enough. Like it's and I use that example because people are like, what? but there's muscle ups, and there's like, diaphragmatic breathing, and like Tom Brady, and you see, it's like they don't have the faculties to think about, did he just say like walking and lifting, some things every now and then is good for life? And yeah, that's it. so so yeah, is that fixable? I don't think so. So what's the I think, forget your question, but what's the link to fix that? I'm hesitating because I don't actually think it's fixable, on a generalized consensus of increasing awareness around that.
So I'll actually go in the direction that you alluded to. Why still take the time to educate ourselves as coaches, educate coaches to try and make that difference?
Yeah, well, you have to, I think, as a coach or anyone, you have to figure out what your intentions are, So this is where, a lot of coaches get thwarted because they figure out that they're doing it to be popular or to be loved, right? They're like, I'm in this fitness thing to be popular. And then over time they say it over and over, like, I'm in this fitness thing to be popular. I'm going to get out of this fitness thing. So you got to figure out why you're doing it, are you doing it to heal yourself? Are you doing it to heal your own things? Are you doing it because someone told you should do it? Are you doing it because your friends were doing it? Try to figure that out. And then if you do see this little opening, where you're like, I believe in those things. Like I in my body and my emotions and deep within me, I feel that people as a whole should be educated on what they have access to in this physical experience, right? And I want to do things that help improve people's ideas and access to that physical expression, you know? And when you say that, you say it out loud, you're like, man, I feel really liberated by that. I'm not afraid to scream it at the top of a mountain. I'm not afraid to tell my family about it. I'm not afraid to tell everyone what my goals are for doing that. You probably could be aligned correctly. So back to your point on, is it worth it? It's probably going to be worth it because back to your initial question, you're probably correctly aligned. Your intentions are probably in the right place, and you're not a bad actor. You're doing it with good intentions. And that's why I made the point of like, you're just gonna have to figure out if it's worth it, if it's worth the punch. Like it's a, it's very, depending upon what you view as success, right? If you're like, well, I want to change the percentages of, take one simple number, right? I want to, by the year 2050, take the adult obese score percentage from 56% down to 21%, and what I'm telling you is that this is my belief, that I think that's impossible. But if it inspires you to try to go after it, you just got to ask, like, is it worth the squeeze? And in the end, if you figure out, to what I think will happen is that it'll be 75% of adults will be obese by 2050, then you got to say, am I okay with just working on the people I worked around me and changed a few lives? And I really admire that. I think that long gone is that coach that is okay with just affecting like 50 to 100 people, really transform their minds and bodies. I think just as a a signal as to what I think coaches should be focusing on more is not a globalization aspect or a social media impact. I think you should focus on 50 to 100 people that are really close to you physically, and take 20 to 30 years to transform those people. I think that's really admirable. I think if we focused on little things like that, um, we may nudge something.
Did you always have that perspective on, let's say, the end game of maybe health and fitness as a whole, or did you maybe have a little bit more romantic view of it in your prior, maybe earlier coaching years?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, to use your words, a more of a, I guess you would call it a poetic truths in my head, um, a romantic version. Because I wasn't, I was doing a lot of things. I couldn't, stick my head up and kind of look around as to what's happening. But I think I got to thank the CCP and my experience in coaching other coaches, to reach my hands across the globe, to travel around the globe, to have access to all this information as to what's happening in China and Russia and Eastern Europe and all around the world and Peru, and like
Mhm.
speak to all these people and be like, so what is life? Why are you doing this thing? What, the more and more time I spend in there, of course, I'm sticking my head further and further away from the doing things in fitness. So I get to then come back inside of my landscape and be like, I'm only making an impact to those, like, the people around me who are listening to the message that I want to speak about. So I've been very, open-minded to what I say and who's listening to me, and the definition of impact for that point on, you know, uh, how I see things.
How much of that self-awareness aspect is included in the CCP? How do you drive coaches to find really what really drives them, what gets them to wake up in the morning, and that so
Yeah.
that they can point that intention towards something that's one, meaningful for them, and
Mm.
again aligned with who they are.
Yeah. That's a softball question. I'm not sure if it was planted by someone who's just more recently been through CCP, but the newest version of CCP gets the coach to focus on themselves for the first couple of months. Um, and I always say it, even though this is like the third or fourth digital iteration of the course, I think the highest utopic model of the course is for us to be in person, and for us to be in person for a couple of months. And for those first 3 or 4 weeks, I would put them through some deep moral character self evaluations, right? Really heavy stuff for themselves, right? Not heavy as in like psychological counseling on the couch kind of heavy, but like, why are you really doing this? And as I'm speaking about that, John, I probably would get like a 30% dropout rate, like a buds training in the first 3 weeks, but they'd ring the bell like, I can't handle myself, so I gotta tap out. So the latest CCP, yeah, gets a coach to, before we even start talking about, what is resistance training and why you should do it for individuals, they get there with this idea like, I got to be really good with the self, like with who I am. What are my confirmation biases? How do I learn? What do I really believe to be true? Where do I think the coach sits in this whole thing? What do I want for myself? How do I propose to learn over a long period of time? Like all these things, they need to really like, ramble with before they even start talking about, muscle fatigue properties in resistance training. So yeah, we have that a lot more in the CCP now, because I want coaches to focus on self, before they focus on others, before they focus on the system, before they focus on the collective. Because most coaches have good intentions today in why they're doing what they're doing, but it's all collective oriented. It's all like, oh, you're going to do the world a good thing and you're helping everyone. It's how all these companies virtue signal that, right? Oh, we're decreasing obesity, doing such good things, right? And and uh and you don't even recognize, like, what do you think? Right? How do you think? How old are you? What is your experience? So self is first, and then we start to talk over time around, you know, how do you initially help those right next to you?
So
How do you put them through an assessment to kind of give them, a layout as to what the plan should be?